Okay, I would like to continue to show you games from this great book by Nigel Davies, because Nigel Davies gave us a complete repertoire for black that not only work against d4, but he tried to give it to us also against c4 and knight f3. Then of course it's up to us to tweak it a little and try to solve possible move orders. But why I think you should have a book like this one or other books written by Nigel Davies, because he really tries to give you a complete repertoire when he writes a book, okay? Because this is a story I just read about Magnus Carlsen. They said if he played that opening twice, it was already in his repertoire. And I think we should all be more flexible. I must admit my sin. I was like Grandmaster Williams. I like to play the Dutch, but the Dutch unfortunately sometimes doesn't have a good result. And maybe also this doesn't have a good result, I don't know. Sometimes we try to switch openings because we don't do well in one. But the point is, why not being a little more flexible and say, hey, my New Year resolution is I want to play completely different openings from the one I played last year. If this is the case, please try to give this book a chance, because it's a good book and it covers definitely these two openings, and it will give you also an idea of pawn structures and tactics that can happen in these openings. Okay, so this is game 3. B. Alderson against Nigel Davies in Reykjavik in 1998. Reykjavik is a tournament that seems is very, very strong, very beautiful. So it's a place where every chess player should dream to go at least once to play, right? So d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, and now white plays f3. Here Nigel Davies writes the mock variation, which is one of white's sharpest answer to the Nimzo. It is also quite fashionable, having been adopted by Wishy Anand amongst others. But I think this move is interesting, right? Because from one side it controls this, from the other it blocks this. So knight c6. I thought this was a good idea at the board. In retrospect, I'm not so sure. I hope that my lack of preparation does not disappoint the reader too much. I tend to prefer general understanding over memorizing variations, and will try to improvise at the board. Instead, for this repertoire is going to give this move, which will be treated in chapter 4. But we want to get this because, you see, is this kind of natural moves that happen at the board that you should think about why did I play that, right? Okay, white continue with e4, like I told you, f3. Like I said in another video, when the opponent plays a move, it's already telling you what's going to happen next. If he plays f3, in my opinion, it's because e4 or g4 were going to happen. g4 obviously is very bad because it leaves this diagonal open, no? But e4, it's good because e4 you control the center. So f3 was made with the idea to play e4. e5, and now white plays d5. Obviously, if white would have played a3, here the author writes bishop takes e3, b takes e3, and d6. But white played d5. And here there is a question, because the book is in a certain sense in the move-by-move format, right, where they ask you some questions during the game. Would closing the center like that a good idea for white? Not at all. So it seems black would get the c5 square now, and f3, f4 could give him the e5 square. Let's see what happens, because this is an interesting question, right? I mean, at this point, do you really want to close the center, or do you want to do something else? So, knight d4 and a3. Here the author gives us a line that he calculated during the game. Honestly, I'm not giving you guys all the lines because, again, I think one should buy the book. I just want to enjoy giving you a review of the book, a little of the games that are inside, so one can decide, hey, yes, I'm interested in this topic, I'm interested in the way the author present the stuff, and I want to buy it. Bishop e7, knight b5. Probably here the author writes this was a better move. It makes sense in the sense that you want, this is the opening, right? Before to go to this lodge, this knight d4 with knight b5, maybe bring out all the pieces. So knight b5, knight takes b5, c takes b5, and bishop c5, queen c2, d6. So now he has also the other bishop open, but look how difficult it is for this bishop to actually go anywhere. Okay, he says this position may surprise those who think that the Nimzo necessarily involves the surrender of a black dark square bishop. He can often keep it on the board, especially if his pin on the white c3 knight has extracted a concession. Okay, bishop d3, knight h5. Obviously the threat here is this, dark, if the g3 takes. So knight e2, and oops, sorry, bishop queen h4. Sorry, I'm watching the book because I found it strange. Why did he play this? Because now you cannot take anymore, and in fact he plays this, right? So I think the reason to play this move, also if the author doesn't tell you about it, is the following. Because now he has created at least one square for this bishop, and that's kind of interesting. So queen f6, and look, I was right. He played knight g1, so you see that this move, queen h4, at this point was just made to create a weak square in a white's camp. That's kind of interesting. Queen g6. Knight e2, queen f6, knight g1, and so here instead of going for a repetition like he suggested, he went for castle. So white was already interested in having a draw. But why? I mean, you just started to play the game. I don't understand. So this is kind of interesting. I think you have noticed, right? That there is the pawn f3 that you could take it if you take here. Take and take here. But probably it's a loss because of bishop e2. And then where does the queen go? It must go back and you lose the knight. So sorry if sometimes I stop during the game and I think, because I see some stuff that is not clear and is not addressed in the book. And so this kind of things, if you are a real beginner, can be mind-boggling, because if you don't have a computer or another expert player in front of you that tell you that, how do you know, right? So I hope you understood. Now instead of castling, he could have taken here, no, and then take this, but then unfortunately that knight there is hanging, so that's why I stop a little. In any case, after castle, white needs to defend, and black plays queen g6. But the idea of queen g6 is obviously that he wants to push, because you see, if he makes space moving, there is a reason again, no? Why he played that move. You always need to ask yourself why. g4, knight f4, bishop takes f4, and e takes f4. Okay, so now guys, black has the bishop pair, which is generally considered a good thing, but this light square bishop is kind of very limited. It doesn't have many squares, right? So how does black solve that? Let's see. Castle, queen f6. And here it says, in some ways this now looks more like a King's Indian than a Nimzo. Black has a powerful dark square bishop and can try to smash open files in front of the white king. The difference is that a King's Indian would have a feature at g6, and here the pawn is still on g7. Yeah. So white plays king b1, and now black start to open the files. What do you think he did, black, in this moment? What would you play if you were black? He played a6. Obviously white is not giving him the chance to open a file in front of the king, so he plays queen c2, and black plays a takes b5, because at least he tries to open the file. After bishop takes b5, again c6, because the idea is to open all the lines and to attack the king, no? Here he didn't try to open it for him, and obviously he retreated. And now he played bishop b7. Sorry, bishop d7. Here he's saying that he could have played this, but he wanted to keep this in the game. So that's why bishop d7. Knight e2. And bishop e3. Very interesting, right? As you can see, the black pieces are aiming and entering the enemy position. We cannot say the same for the white pieces, and that's bad, right? Because it means white is already losing. h4, so look at this. White is trying to attack the king side, right? But the problem is at the moment it doesn't have a real majority on the king side of pieces. So he probably planned to play this, but you can't because of this. Maybe he needs to double the rooks on the h file, maybe, and then he needs to sack a pawn in order to have access there. I don't know. The point is, it's a little strange, but after all, what could have he done? What could have done white in this position, right? Okay, so let's see how we continue. So after h4 he played rook f c8, d takes c6, b takes c6. So now the open files are in front. This is a great position for black, in my opinion. Because generally you ask yourself which of the two sides do you want to play. Well, I definitely want to play the black side. Queen c3, trying to exchange the queens, but obviously at this point black doesn't want to exchange the queens, right? Queen e7, aiming at this, because once you have a rook here, this becomes a kind of a pin and they cannot be protect this, right? Queen d3, d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, bishop takes d5. Okay, so now rook a b8. And of course now there is a little tactic, as you can see. You could ask yourself what would you play if you were white, because there is a way to gain a pawn. But the problem here is that the material advantage that you gain on there maybe is gonna be really shaking this, right? So let's see what happens, because I think you will see it. Bishop takes f7, queen takes f7, queen takes d7, and of course again, now I don't think you want to exchange queens, right? So he plays queen f6. And here the author says, according to the engine, this is a mistake. It seems I should have a fourth draw here. Okay, so this is interesting. Do you know what the engine would have played? This is kind of very interesting. It would have played rook takes b2, check. King takes b2, rook b8, check again. King a1, rook b1, king takes b1, and queen b3, check. Then king a1, queen takes f3, king b1, queen b3, etc., with a draw. So if the engine wants to draw, it means this position is lost for black. But would you have said that? That's a strange thing, huh? Well, so we play queen f6, knight d4, and king h8, rook h2, rook d8, queen a4, rook takes d4, not check, but rook takes d4, bishop takes d4. Wow. Okay, so we have 5 against 3. These two are passed pawn, but the attack is still ongoing, right? So rook e2, bishop e3, blocking the rook. h5, obviously, because this was in pre. Queen d6, notice this and this, so if you move a queen, this could fall. King a1, this is given as dubious, probably there was something better, but we don't know. Rook c8, rook e1, rook d8, g5, queen d5, and h6. trying to explode the black king in hope of gaining some tricks. But like always, you know, the author plays queen takes g5, but the engine would have played this. The author says also if he knew, he wouldn't play this. So there is a, as you can see, as humans we cannot play like engine because we are not engines. But this is kind of interesting. H takes g7, queen takes g7, and now there is a mistake by white. He should have played queen b5, instead he played rook h1. Rook b8, the threat is obviously queen here and checkmate or attacking this. Queen c2, avoiding the queen here. Bishop d4, piling up. Rook b1, queen e5, king a2, queen d5 check, b3, and now, oops, he finally pockets the pawn on f3. Rook d1, bishop g7, b4, queen e3, rook d3, queen e6 check, king b1, and now there is the final move of the game. I hope you can guess what it is, because that would help you a lot. It's queen f6, threatening the checkmate here, and obviously also if white tries to escape, it can become a little messy, right? Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this game, and here it says, I think it's important that it tells you something about why he was playing this, the Queen's Indian or the Nimzo-Indian. He says, this kind of flexibility both in the pawn structure and piece deployment can be challenging even for experienced players. It also represents an opportunity for outplaying the opponent, which may be at the heart of why the Nimzo and Queen's Indian defenses have been the repertoire choice of so many great players. It is difficult to think of a world champion who has not included at least one of these defenses in their repertoire during the last century. Okay, so once more, I hope you enjoyed this game from this book, and many more will come, so I can show you what there is inside as repertoire. Keep in mind that the good thing of these books is that at the end you have practically all the variations in this format, so you can use it eventually in a correspondence game to learn the repertoire and then to go to the actual chapter or move order that give you an example of that particular variation in real play. And of course, as you can see, he also give you a kind of repertoire against knight f3 and against c4. So again, I think he gave a complete repertoire, which is good, because you generally want to buy a book that tells you everything. You don't want to buy 10 books, right? And so generally this is what he does. Nigel Davies tries to give you a complete repertoire. I hope you will enjoy the book. Thank you for watching.